Good morning and welcome to Daily Devotions with Pastor Joe. I'm Pastor Joe, and for this beautiful Wednesday, October 17th, 2018, we're going to be taking a look at Psalm 15. Psalm 15, as it says here on my eSword application, says, "Who shall dwell on your holy hill?" as a title. It's a Psalm of David. It says, "Lord, who shall abide in thy tabernacle? Who shall dwell in thy holy hill? He that walketh uprightly, and worketh righteousness, and speaketh the truth in his heart. He that backbiteth not with his tongue, nor doeth evil to his neighbour, nor taketh up a reproach against his neighbour, in whose eyes a vile person is contemned, but he honoureth them that fear the Lord. He that sweareth to his own hurt, and changeth not. He that putteth not out his money to usury, nor taketh reward against the innocent. He that doeth these things shall never be moved." And so this is a very nice and a very pleasant Psalm of David. There are some where it gets a little bit sad and a little bit depressing for a moment, but this one doesn't even have a small sense of that. The entire Psalm is uplifting and encouraging to live a holy life and to live a righteous life before God. Who shall abide in thy tabernacle? Who shall dwell in thy holy hill? So ultimately it's saying, who is going to live a life above reproach and dwell in God's holy hill in heaven with him for all of eternity? And then it goes through the next 4 verses to explain some of the attributes of a person who is living right before the Lord. It says a person who's walking uprightly, or in other words, walking without guilt, without blame, without any reason to blame them, right? So whenever you say somebody's living a blameless life or blameless lifestyle, that means that you can't find any reason to accuse them. You can make up plenty of things, but you can't find any actual reasoning to accuse them. So there's nobody who can bring a just and a true argument against their moral character. So how are you doing on that? How am I doing on that? How are we doing about walking uprightly before our neighbors? And worketh righteousness, does good things and good deeds. You know, these things very much explain several people that I've been around lately here in this new church, and several people back home as well. I know quite a few people who measure up to the standards here in this passage in Psalms. It says, he that speaketh the truth in his heart, who from the very beginning just utters truth, does not lie, doesn't even think about lying, but instead from his very heart speaks the truth, no matter what the truth might be. He that backbites not with his tongue. So in other words, a person who doesn't speak back in hatred and in anger and in fury. A person who doesn't just backtalk angrily or snappily or with dramatic frustration towards somebody. You know, we've been dealing a lot with this with our youngest child, our littlest girl. We tell her, you know, that she's doing something she shouldn't do. Maybe it's after we've parked at a place and I go into a store and my wife is letting the kids get around in the car and play and do whatever else while I run in and grab some stamps or something of that sort. And she gets up in the front seat, and then when she gets in that front seat, and I come back and I say, "Okay, little lady, get back in your seat." She'll grin, laugh, and say, "No." Well, we're trying to work with her to understand that talking back to your parents in that way isn't appropriate. Well, this is even further than that. Backbiting with your tongue is a little bit deeper than that. It's biting back spitefully or angrily, trying to cause pain with your words. Whenever somebody has hurt you, you try to hurt them back. And that's not right. And somebody who doesn't do that, well, you're probably well on your way of patience and peace with your neighbors. It says, "Nor doeth evil to his neighbor." We see over and over again in the Psalms, the Proverbs, that people who are of the world, who are evil, who are sinners, who are wicked, the wicked lie in wait to hurt others. They stay up all night trying to think of ways to hurt somebody, you know, and that's not necessarily everybody in the world, but you understand the very wicked people, they plan to do evil to their neighbor. But even then, you have some people who you would probably claim are pretty good people, who would be pretty spiteful at times. I knew people before who've done the same. I'm not going to tell any stories, but would do spiteful little things to try and get back at their neighbors for things that they had felt wronged by. Nor taketh up a reproach against his neighbor, just somebody who's forgiving. To be a true believer in God and to be someone who's really following him, you should be a forgiving person. You don't take up the reproach. In fact, in the Allegheny discipline, it specifically talks about not taking your brother to court, but instead trying to get the matter settled through the church instead, so that the church can take care of the issue and right the wrong and rebuild the friendship and the relationship in a more peaceful way. Because even Jesus said in the New Testament that if your brother should sue you for your shirt, give him your coat. Go on above and beyond and be generous and say, hey, look, I've got nothing against you and I've done nothing wrong to you, and I'm even willing to help you even further than what you're trying to take from me. Now, that doesn't mean to be a complete fool about things. It doesn't mean to just hand all of your things to everybody and be poor and destitute all of your life. That would be silly. But it does mean that you're not going to be angrily fighting against your neighbor, quarreling, bickering against each other. Verse 4 says, in whose eyes a vile person is condemned. Or in other words, you look at sin and you say sin is absolutely evil. And this person who is living just destitute in sin and has no care for God, they are condemned to hell. And, it's not that you're condemning them, but you see them as a condemned individual. For us as Christians today, that means more than just what with David in his day, it would have created a lot of anger, because he would have thought very clearly and really rightly that this person is anti-God, is against God, and so they deserve whatever lashings or whatever punishment they might get from it. But in our day, we look at them in love and in pity, realizing that though they are a vile and a wicked and an evil individual, that they are somebody who needs the love of God in their life, who needs to be saved, and we feel pity for them. Doesn't mean that we feel like, oh, well, love and peace, and no, we still have to condemn what they've done and let them know. But instead of the condemned person, instead of the vile, the wicked, the sinner, the evil person, he honors them that fear the Lord, honors other Christians, and loves them. And holds them dear to himself. He that swears to his own hurt and changes not, or in other words, makes a promise, and whenever it comes back to hurt him, and it's a difficult one to fulfill, does it even though it's difficult or painful for him. Verse 5, he that putteth out his own money not to usury, or in other words, whenever they lend out their money, they're not expecting to make a lot of money in return. They're not trying to make a big profit. Nor taketh reward against the innocent, which makes perfect sense, to not try and take an innocent person for more than they're worth, or to try and take them for extra money, I find it difficult whenever I help a friend to even ask for a penny. I don't want to ask for money. If they want to give me something, I'll take it. But I don't like to take money whenever I do something to help somebody. So that's maybe a downfall in a way to me, but it's also a good thing, I suppose. I don't take the innocent for a reward, and then I would expect and I hope that others would return that same favor to help out whenever possible, and as the Lord allows them to. Of course, everybody has to make money, but you understand what I mean. He that doeth these things shall never be moved. Because in order to live in this way, in order to really live up to all of these standards, David is making a very clear case, because if you look into the world, there's not a single person who's not a Christian who lives up to every one of these standards. Because to live up to all of these standards and have none of these things fail in the checklist of your life, you would have to have your firm foundation in Christ. You would have to look back to Psalm 1 and be like the tree planted by the rivers of water that bears his fruit in his season, his leaf doesn't wither. So you would have to have your life firmly and deeply rooted in Christ. You would have to be fed continually from the living source of the living waters. And you would have to really be firmly grounded in God. That's the only way you could live this way. And so ultimately, the person who is unmovable, because they're completely given to God and they're living up to his moral standards, they are the person who will abide in the tabernacle of the Lord in his holy hill. It's what the psalmist says, and it's what the Bible confirms over and again abundantly all the way through. So, anyway, if you enjoy this daily devotional, give it a like, share with your friends, comment down below, subscribe to the channel if you're new. Just let me know what you think of this psalm, or if you've gotten any encouragement, or if you've got a testimony to share. I'd love to hear it. Try to do this every day, but it's been a little bit shaky lately, just waiting on internet. So take care. I'll see you again on another daily devotional with Pastor Joe. God bless, and have a great day in the Lord.